So I would like to start my presentation. But before starting, I would like to say that we're very happy about this ACQF project, which is in Russian, the African Continental Qualification Framework. But I'll be using just this acronym, ASQF. From 11th to 30th of July, just the previous week, in the headquarters of the African unit, Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, conference was held where the political document was adopted by the countries of the African Union. There were 78 participants from 33 countries and 11 organizations. And in addition, from 30 to 40 participants from other countries of the world who are participating online. On this very conference, there was a launching of the project that was called ASQF2 that will contribute to the implementation of this ASQF. So the stages of ACQF development is just finalized, though qualification frameworks can never come to an end. It's the continuous process of improvement and changes and adaptation to the new circumstances, needs, and demands of the world. This project, and here I would like to mention the word implementation, is the major focus of this 2 days event, the conference, which was successfully held in the headquarters of the African Union. This project is funded by the European Union and implemented by the ETF. As I said earlier, the content of the presentation will be in English. That's why please use the translation into Russian for those who need their translation. So here you can see some of the pictures. These are all the members of this event in the major room of the headquarters of the African Union, where we have got the ambassador of the EU under the African Union, and also the commissioner on the educational issues and training, innovations, and science of the African Union. And this is the political document of ASQF in 3 languages: English, French, and Portuguese. These are 3 official languages of the African Union. This was really a very dynamic conference, which caused great interest on the side of the participants, with lots of positive proposals, responses, feedback from all the participants.
So Africa needs skills. Africa needs skills because Africa is the youngest continent of the world. It is a very big diversity of countries, 1.4 billion population. It's the youngest continent, as I just said. 65% of the population is younger than 25 years. More than 5 million, 540 million are below 14 years. And so this is a very important, from one side, issue. But also it is called the demographic dividend. But the demographic dividend must be nurtured and supported through skills, lifelong learning, education, and in different education and training in the most different contexts and modalities, and of course, employability. The demographic dividend sets new demands on skills and qualifications. And this, of course, is a call for the ACQF. National industrial policies need to adapt to the new environment provided by the AFCFTA, which is the Continental Free Trade Area. Tailoring skills policies to technical needs and emerging trends is crucial for attracting investment and increasing linkages with lead companies and firms. Talent and skills are ranked among the top 4 determinants driving foreign direct investment to developing countries, according to the World Bank. Upskilling and reskilling will be crucial to meet sector-specific needs and new requirements for Africa's digital and green transformation. Enhancing policy dialogue between policymakers, the private sector, and training institutions will help to identify skills needs and design appropriate training programs at the sectoral level. National governments and the private sector can also pool resources into regional centers of excellence to train African workers, technicians, engineers, researchers. And supporting intra-regional skills mobility of learners and workers will help alleviate skills shortages in some sectors. So the African Union Policy Initiative, the African Continental Qualifications Framework, intends to provide responses to some of those calls we just mentioned. It is based, the African Continental Qualifications Framework is based on AU, African Union policies, that I will mention right after. And it has therefore a very strong political and a very source political support and underpinnings on these policies and strategies of the African Union. So the African Continental Qualifications Framework is underpinned by AU policies and strategies, especially the following: the Agenda 2063 and its first 10-year implementation plan. CESA, which is the Continental Education Strategy for Africa, 2016-2025. The African Continental Free Trade Area that concerns all the 55 countries of the continent, and START is already in implementation, already 3 years in implementation. There is also the African Union Free Movement Protocol, a protocol that is not yet fully ratified, so it's not yet in implementation. And then there is also another interesting and very pertinent policy called the Pan-African Quality Assurance Framework for Higher Education. The contributing CESA 2025 contains 2 strategic objectives that specifically mention national qualifications frameworks, regional qualifications frameworks, and the continental qualifications framework. So these are the specific objectives for C and for D, as you can see on the screen. So one of them calls to set up national qualifications frameworks and regional qualifications frameworks to facilitate the creation of multiple pathways to acquisition of skills and competences, as well as mobility across the subsectors. And most importantly, 4.D strategic objective calls for development of the Continental Qualifications Framework linked to the regional and the national qualifications frameworks in order to facilitate regional integration and mobility of graduates, of learners. Building the ACQF, I think this is an important topic, and Darya asked me to share information about this process. How was it organized? ETF was involved in this process since September 2019, when the first ACQF project was inaugurated, again, in the same place, headquarters of the African Union Commission. I'd like to say that the number of contributing countries has been growing over time, and the participation of all the countries that you see on the screen has been fundamental for the success of this phase of development of the African Continental Qualifications Framework. So the buy-in, the interest, the direct contributions in terms of peer sharing, participation in the meetings of ACQF advisory group to develop, to discuss and validate all the many technical and policy outputs of the first project. This was essential. Without the countries and the regions, the ACQF would have not been born. So the countries are, we have had in total 44 out of 55 countries directly participating, as well as 3 most fundamental regional economic communities. There are also very important other participants in form of organizations, regional thematic organizations of continental scope, such as the African Continental Verification Network, which contributes very much to smooth recognition of foreign qualifications, the African Curriculum Association, the organizations also dealing with higher education in the Francophone, the French-speaking region, the students, All Africa Students Union, as well as the African social partners, trade unions and employers. We are also always very grateful for the contributions in the peer learning webinars and capacity development programs of a number of countries from the European Union, especially countries of the EQF zone, and countries also from Asia and Middle East. They are also listed on the slides. Bahrain, France, Ireland, Portugal, Slovenia, Sweden, and other countries. The other regional qualifications frameworks have also been participating in the activities, in the debates, and you can also see them here. For example, the ASEAN Regional Qualifications Reference Framework. ASEAN is the Association of Southeast Nations, and Credential Engine of the US, although it's not a qualifications framework, but it's a very important network, let's say, technological infrastructure dealing with qualifications and credentials. CEDEFOP and ICNARIC, the ESCO of the European Commission, UNESCO, have also been participating in many of the activities that led to the setup of the African Continental Qualifications Framework. All this process, we always like to emphasize, had 2 sides. One, technical analysis, technical proposals. The other side were the people and networks. And so this joint interaction of the technical elements and the people contribution and peer learning and peer sharing activities are fundamental in this process of development of such a framework in a very complex environment. So we had, let me just, so this meant notably a very strong support of the African Union Commission. So the African Union Commission with the political leadership of the process. A very important development throughout these 3 years of activity was the setting up and growth and consolidation of the ACQF advisory group, composed initially of 40 members, including countries, as well as the different regional, fundamental regional institutions and networks, as well as the social partners and the students' union. The process, as already said, combined technical and analytical component, studies and technical guidelines and other technical developments with working and networking with people. The technical team included a very strong practical NQF expertise and experience, was multilingual and covered basically all regions in terms of representativeness. there was a very strong learning and capacity development component throughout the entire process. As you can imagine, the project had to adapt its initial work plan to the special conditions and restrictions of the COVID-19 period. So the project started just before the start of the global pandemic. This adaptation went smoothly, and the fact that all activities were moved into the digital and online activities actually very much contributed to this very strong boost of networking and peer sharing. The project also tried to build from the beginning a notion of what we have called quick wins. So such as those 15 peer learning webinars that are now transformed in a platform of learning videos, 15 plus additional 5 under another umbrella. The main results, outputs of this project in the period 2020-2022 are also listed on the screen. So first of all, the most important is this policy document that was adopted by the AU member states last week. The level descriptors, the ACQF level descriptors, and of course the ACQF structure as a policy instrument of a meta referencing framework. The 10 technical guidelines and synthesis guidelines as connected, the 10 training modules also connected with these 10 guidelines, the ACQF website, which is an independent website. You can find it at www.acqf.africa. The mapping study collection, the feasibility study of the ACQF, and also other reviews and research, notably the review of implementation of one of the African regional qualifications frameworks, the most advanced and experienced, which is the Southern African Development Community Qualifications Framework. I will not list everything. I wanted just to focus on those most important outputs. As I already said, the project has supported very strongly capacity development, and all the presentations, pedagogic videos, the training materials, the training modules are all accessible online for anyone to use and learn directly. We also have a Moodle learning system. The ACQF mapping study collection started in end 2019, but it's a continuing effort. So the work always goes on. We try to update, keep these reports updated, and to feed this information into one of the tools on the ACQF website, which is the inventory and snapshot of national qualifications frameworks. It's also very important to bear in mind that the African continent has been through very interesting processes, dynamic processes of development of national qualifications frameworks. So national qualifications frameworks are at different stage of development, as you can imagine. And on this graph, we just try to in a very simplistic manner, let's say, synthesize the state of play of qualifications frameworks in Africa, national, but based on a total number of countries, 44 countries, not the 55 countries. So you can see that there are 16% of these 45 countries have national qualifications frameworks in advanced status of implementation, and they are even being already reviewed. Very soon, this number is going to be updated because Kenya is going to join this group of the most advanced. So 16%, not meaning 7 such countries with a lot of experience. Some of them, like South African national qualifications frameworks, has 25 years of experience. The 41% of these 45 countries are at the stage of development having been approved and start of implementation, or initial stages of actual implementation of the adopted framework. It's a very large number, as you can see, 18 such countries. And even within this category, there are differences. So some countries are more dynamic than others. I would say, for example, Angola, Mozambique, and of course, Kenya, Eswatini, Lesotho are very dynamic countries, moving very quick forward. Other countries are going a bit more slowly for different contextual reasons. 8 countries are at the stage of development and consultation. 9 countries are doing the first steps. This is a very favorable, let's say, context for the implementation of the African Continental Qualifications Framework. With this picture, we just want to emphasize one important message of the ACQF for countries, for all countries developing, implementing their national qualifications framework. So national qualifications frameworks do not work in isolation. They work in an ecosystem composed of different elements, like the institutional setting and the stakeholders, like, of course, qualifications, specifications, and standards, credit accumulation and transfer systems, fundamental for some of the functions of the national qualifications frameworks, qualifications databases, registers, increasingly becoming digital, interoperable instruments, quality assurance of qualifications and provision, the RPL, or validation of non-formal, informal learning, monitoring and evaluation and research, outreach, communication, visibility to users, to end users. So all these are the elements as well as the topics of our guidelines, 10 guidelines, and you can see the themes are also listed on the screen. So we start with the guideline number 1 on learning outcomes, the number 2 on level descriptors, including the story how the ACQF level descriptors were developed, discussed, and documented, the entire process, documented with specific glossaries and matrices for development of the different levels. So you can see the topics. You can see, for example, that among the topics there is also, for example, the guideline number 10, which is about innovation and technology in the context of qualifications and national qualifications frameworks and the ACQF. And where, for example, the conversation on micro-credentials is already started. Let me go quickly forward. So just an example of a country that was at level, let's say, 0, if we could say, at the beginning of the ACQF project, and in the meantime has done quite substantial progress thanks to this cooperation with the National Qualifications Framework or with the ACQF, but also especially because of very strong national ownership and cooperation with other EU projects in the country, notably projects dealing with the reform of vocational education and training system in the country. So Guinea-Bissau is not the easiest country, and it's a poor country with many, let's say, political issues, but with enormous motivation by all stakeholders. So this is just a picture of the first NQF workshop in the country last year. This was a workshop opened by the Minister of Education, very strongly supported by the EU delegation to Guinea-Bissau, as well as by the partners, Enabel, which is the Belgian cooperation, which is the organization implementing the TVET reform project. So you can also see on the screen all the various developments that could be done in approximately just one and a half year of work with the country. So a mapping study, an NQF working group is put in place, very motivated, the workshop, ACQF training, a brief handbook on development of the professional qualifications. A very important development early this year is the concept paper on the NQF for Guinea-Bissau and a web page on ACQF website. We had also 2 important activities, which we have called training weeks, 2 training weeks. Literally, 2 training weeks. So the first one in April was fully online. The second one, the last, was took place in Johannesburg. We have also digital certificates on the screen. One of our participants from Eswatini is proudly showing the printed certificates upon participation in ACQF training weeks. You can see also, just as a matter of interest, the participants' evaluation of the training weeks. You can also see the number of participants. So in the first training week, 134, in the second one, 212. The number of certificates that were delivered. Of course, these are digital certificates. People just take them and print them if they wish. This is also another just view of the participants' feedback. You can see quite high feedback. Highest 4 is the highest for feedback, the highest rank, and you can see that the average here is approximately 3.6 on all criteria and indicators that were proposed for this evaluation. The same thing is happening also with the second training week. So this way of collecting feedback, and not only of quantitative but also of qualitative nature, was very helpful and fed into the development of the current ACQF project that started also this year. So let me go also very, very quickly through the most important characteristics, features of the ACQF, starting with the objectives. So the objectives are to enhance comparability, quality, transparency of qualifications in a lifelong learning perspective. So this is a comprehensive, inclusive framework. The second objective is to facilitate validation of learning outcomes, recognition of skills, and also of formal qualifications. Facilitate. Then work in cooperation with the national authorities, the national stakeholders in supporting capacities and also development of national qualifications frameworks. A very important component of the new ACQF project. The fourth objective is to promote cooperation and referencing between qualifications frameworks, national, regional, and also globally. One of the objectives, one of the activities foreseen in the current ACQF project is exactly comparison with the EQF, the European Qualifications Framework, around 2025-2026. The underpinnings are also indicated. I already spoke about the policy underpinnings of the ACQF, so all those African Union strategies and political commitments, initiatives, but very important also here to note the principles. So the principles are, first of all, the inclusiveness. So to all types of qualifications, all modes of learning, so parity of esteem of all modes of learning, innovation, so openness to new demands related with the global transformation, green and digital transformation, transversal skills, and other phenomena. And finally, the openness to learning from global and African, of course, experiences, openness to demands of the various stakeholders groups. It is a meta framework. So this means a translation device for referencing, comparison, cooperation between different national qualifications frameworks. And in a previous slide, I already showed a little bit the panorama of dynamics of national qualifications frameworks in Africa. It has comprehensive scope, all levels, modes of learning. It's a 10 levels framework, and this corresponds very much to the large majority of national qualifications frameworks and even regional on the African continent. And as our colleague said earlier, does not at all mean that all national qualifications frameworks which want to cooperate and reference should have 10 levels. Absolutely not. every national qualifications framework is contextualized and adapted to the national objectives and systems. The level descriptors are expressed as learning outcomes, and the domains of learning are similar to the domains of learning of many other regional and national qualifications frameworks globally, notably knowledge, skills, autonomy, and responsibility. The learning outcomes orientation of the ACQF is very strongly emphasized, and that's why, for example, one of the guidelines, the number one, is dedicated to this topic exactly. So supports the learning outcomes orientation, supports the improvement of transparency of and comparability of qualifications of different national systems, transparency and credibility of RPL or validation of non-formal and informal learning, access to quality, to high quality and credible RPL, application of credit accumulation and transfer systems in different academic and vocational pathways. As already said earlier, and I'll be here very brief, ACQF aims at connecting the national and regional qualifications frameworks of the community of African Union member states. This core function is based on the process called referencing to ACQF. So referencing is a process aimed at comparing national qualifications frameworks or systems to the ACQF following a set of agreed criteria and procedures. At national level, referencing contributes to self-assessment of the status of the national qualifications framework or system, to identify also areas for reform and improvement. At continental level and between countries, referencing to the ACQF of a significant and increasing number of national qualifications or frameworks or systems leads to the creation of a common area of trusted qualifications and enables the transformative potential of the ACQF for the continent. So the 7 main areas of activity of the ACQF as defined in the ACQF policy document are listed here, and they are referencing to ACQF, support recognition of prior learning, the ACQF qualifications platform and management information system, qualifications development, especially, and that's the most important, common profiles, not really qualifications because this is national, common profiles for priority sectors of the AFCFTA, continental integration, emerging occupations, capacity development, networking and cooperation, communication, and also analysis, research, monitoring, and evaluation. And as said in the beginning of this presentation, the ACQF is now in the stage of implementation. Of course, elements of implementation started already during the design and development phase, but now we really entered into this phase of implementation. So to support the implementation, the European Union has developed jointly with the African Union a new project, which we call ACQF2, and the title is Support to the Implementation of the ACQF. It's a new project. It builds on and enhances the outputs of the ACQF1. So the point is continuity for action and impact. It is financed under the EU, under the Neighborhood Development and International Cooperation Instrument. The duration is from April 2023 to December 2026. And ACQF2 is not a standalone project. It is part of a flagship initiative of the European Union, Youth Mobility for Africa. This flagship is included in another global important initiative of the European Union called Global Gateway Africa-Europe Investment Package. So I'm going to be soon finishing the presentation, and I'd like just to mention some fundamental, let's say, features and main outputs of the ACQF2. So it is the project has a comprehensive, wide, and holistic scope, as you will see later. It is designed to support those 7 main areas of activity of the ACQF policy document that we have just presented. The geography is continental, regional, and national. And remember in the beginning, I mentioned CESA, the Education Continental Strategy for Africa requires that these 3 layers work together. It is oriented to action at all levels. It is based on research and analysis to support effectiveness and quality of the activities. It will work together with national and regional authorities and a diverse scope of stakeholders. It is based on experience, on expertise, and therefore a technical implementation team, a first technical implementation team, has been put in place, mixing professional experience in all the relevant thematic domains with the necessary also combination of languages and country experience. It is a project managed by the ETF, which is, as you know, our EU agency, which has a very long-standing experience and expertise in this domain of NQFs, RQFs, skills development, technical vocational education and training, recognition of qualifications, and also labor market information system. And now in a very simplified, as always, scheme, we present here the main objectives and planned outputs of the ACQF2. We have then 3 fundamental outcomes, which are capacity development, advocacy, and awareness raising. That's number 1. Number 2 is support to development of and also implementation of national qualifications frameworks, policies, guidelines, and related policies in a number of countries. Of course, countries are at different stage of development of their NQFs and related policies. And the third big outcome is operationalization of the ACQF. So the first 1 and 2 very much contribute to the success of the third outcome, operationalization of the ACQF. Let me also go quickly through the main outputs of this big outcome number 3. So the first output, 3.1, is the governance partnership, so support and enhancement of the governance partnership, including the ACQF advisory group, and also the creation of an African national qualifications frameworks network. And I want to say with great pleasure that this proposal was also validated by the EU member states last week, so as one of the important activities going forward. All countries are very much interested in this network that will also contribute to sustainability going forward and after the end of this project. Under this 3.1 output, we also have development launch of a digital qualifications platform and also work on digital certificates. The 3.2 output is fully dedicated to RPL, and we call it an RPL campaign composed of a number of elements going from awareness raising, training, handbooks, and also support at national level. And I'd like to say there is a very big interest across AU, African Union member states, in development of RPL. Some people say recognition of prior learning is done for Africa, and Africa is done for recognition of prior learning. So it's no surprise that there is such a big interest. So this is the output 3.3. Let me speak about the 3.2, which is focused on referencing. So that's also a very important function, as we all know, of any framework of this type, a referencing meta framework. During the conference last week, a number of countries and even a region have already expressed interest in referencing to the ACQF. And of course, these are countries that are at stage of advanced implementation, countries such as Mauritius, Kenya, a very dynamic country, Seychelles, also a country with a lot of experience, and Cabo Verde. And among the regions, we have the East Africa community, also a region very dynamic, interested also in referencing its regional qualifications framework to the ACQF. So these are just the first expressions of interest. And finally, the output 3.4 is focused on development of common profiles of qualifications. There is a lot of information on all the outputs of the ACQF1, for example, infographics that briefly present the framework, all the guidelines in 3 languages, as well as the training modules are accessible online at acqf.africa. There is a manual, a handbook on the ACQF, which puts together the 10 synthesis guidelines. And this handbook is actually an annex to the ACQF policy document. Let's say it's the technical foundation of that policy document. So, as said earlier, please, if you are interested, just go online and take a look. The newest information is coming very soon, is going to be published very soon, notably the results of the conference last week. Thank you very much for your attention.